Well, good afternoon. I'm laying on the couch in the camper because I got tired. I laid down and I fell asleep. And then I got upset with myself because I started thinking about everything I needed to get done. And that I need to get up and get it done. But that kind of fits with what we're talking about today in our devotional number 6. Devotional number 6 says we all fall short. And so I'm going to read that. One day I realized that the fact that I couldn't measure up was exactly the point. I've fallen short because we've all fallen short. That's why I need Jesus. That's the whole point. I could never be good enough to somehow make myself acceptable. There's a cool thing I never noticed in that passage from Romans 3. The whole thing reads, "But now a righteousness from God apart from law has been made known, to which the law and the prophets testify. This righteousness from God comes through faith in Jesus Christ to all who believe. There's no difference, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus." That's Romans 3:21 through 24, the NIV version. The Jewish law was all about the do's and don'ts, and many of us can relate because the type of Christianity we grew up with was all about the rules we kept. But God's righteousness is about faith in Jesus, not about keeping laws. This was an epiphany moment for me. All have fallen short. I was no different than anyone else, and I was no surprise to God. There's no way to be good 100% of the time simply through sheer will. At least I had no ability to do it. But look at the next verse. After all have fallen short, all are justified freely by his grace. Amazing! To fall short simply means we've all made mistakes. But the next verse, which usually gets left out, states that we are all justified through Jesus when we've placed our faith in him, no matter what mistakes we've made. In Romans 4, it becomes clear that God doesn't look at what we do or don't do to make us right with him. The passage is speaking of Abraham being the father of those who were made righteous by having the same kind of faith he had. Starting in verse 13, we read, "Clearly, God's promise to give the whole earth to Abraham and his descendants was based not on his obedience to God's law, but on a right relationship with God that comes by faith. If God's promise is only for those who obey the law, then faith is not necessary, and the promise is pointless. For the law always brings punishment on those who try to obey it. The only way to avoid breaking the law is to have no law to break. So the promise is received by faith. It is given as a free gift, and we are all certain to receive it, whether or not we live according to the law of Moses, if we have faith like Abraham's." That's Romans 4:13 through 16 in the New Living Translation. No matter what we do, we can't do enough to earn acceptance. It requires only faith. So when we place our faith in Jesus, we receive the free gift of God's promise. Keeping or not keeping the law of Moses will not affect it. We've seen that failing at life or falling short is simply part of the human experience. It's time to stop beating yourself up for making those mistakes. In the passage from Romans 4, it says that the only way to avoid breaking the law is if there were no law to break. But we also see that the opposite of living according to the law is living by faith. Faith, however, is confidence. You can't will yourself to have enough faith. You can't conjure it up. Faith is something that grows as you experience the faithfulness of God. And it will grow as you walk through this process and continue to invite God into it to walk through it with you. As you experience His trustworthiness and learn more of what His love for you looks like and feels like, your faith will increase. You will no longer need to depend only on yourself, because you will have the one who is more reliable than any person could ever be to look for direction and comfort. Okay, so our prompts. Remember, we need to look for the weedy lie, and the weedy lie this time is that I have to be 100% perfect 100% of the time to measure up. And our next prompt is forgive. God, I choose to forgive myself for the mistakes I've made. And it lists them here if you like. Here's the rewind. I reject the lie that those mistakes have disqualified me in any way from belonging to you. Rest. We just learned that one last time. I accept the truth that I can live a life of faith, which will continue to grow and develop as I depend on you. All right, so a couple writing prompts. In what ways have you fallen short? And how could you grow through faith through those situations? All right, thanks for listening and being part of our Learning Love Spring Summer book study. And I will be with you the next few days processing these prompts. And then tomorrow, then our next prompt, day 7, devotion 7, because we're not doing this in days. All right, see you soon. Thanks for joining.